Hi, my name is Strawberry. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I hope you're having a good day. If you're not, hopefully I can make you laugh and brighten up your day a little bit. Today I'm going to be reading malicious compliance stories on Reddit, and these always make me laugh, so I hope that you get a kick out of them too. Our first Reddit story is by Maka is Awesome. You want all the shirts stacked on the edge of the table? Sure thing, boss. So I work at a clothing store on the sales floor. My job is basically to interact with customers to help them get what they're looking for and also fold and organize store clothes. Now, during my shift, there was this table that was just packed with clothes with piles that went up super tall. So I decided to start with that table. And as I was working, I noticed that there was a shelf under the table that was empty, and those shelves are normally used as storage for excess. So my plan was to make normal piles and then store the excess in those shelves, because some of the rules of how things should look just say that you only need like 2 or 3 items of each size per pile, and to sort them from biggest size at the bottom to smallest at the top. And there's also like an unwritten one where if the pile ends up small, to then add more until it reaches the bottom of the price sign. So I do that. I make piles that reach the bottom of the sign and then store the rest. Now, as I was starting to store the excess, one of the managers passes by and asks what I was doing. So I explain what I already said here, and he doesn't like it, and he tells me to put everything on the table. So I explained to him why that's a bad idea, because it can make it harder for customers to get their size, and easier for them to make a mess accidentally. But he doesn't care, and he just tells me to put everything back. So I do, and I just stack them, and the piles end up being very tall. I'm 6'2", and some of the piles reached my chest. Wow. But that's what the boss wanted, so I finished and went away to do something else. Now, for context, our store also has like a baby toddler area, so obviously parents sometimes bring their kids to buy clothes for them. Now, after I had left that table to work on something else, a father stood next to the table to wait for his wife, and he had his kid on his shoulder. I don't remember why. Maybe it was to burp it or calm it down, I don't know. But now, as the father was swinging from side to side to calm the baby, he accidentally hit the side of the table, and some of the piles that were on that side fell down behind the father. And as if it was a sign of the universe to show I had the right idea, just as the father was turning around to see what happened, the baby puked because of the momentum, and it covered a lot of the shirts that were now on the floor. And so we had no choice but to throw away those dirty clothes now. And there were a lot. Plus, it got expensive. Each shirt cost like $10, and there were easily like 10 to 15, maybe 20 shirts on the floor. So we lost a couple $100 there. And the worst part is that the first manager that told me to just stack them tried to pass the blame onto me. But I explained what happened to another manager, and they put the blame back on that first manager and told him to pay for the damages. Edit. Okay, I messed up here. They didn't make him pay. That was just something I misinterpreted from what I heard happened to him, because he did get called in by his superiors, but apparently a lot of coworkers have had similar situations with that manager in the past and complaining about him. Okay, well that like ruined the story for me. But yeah, I don't understand why managers do that type of thing. It's really stupid. It goes against store policy, and you are trying to shift the blame onto your employees, which is stupid. I love malicious compliance for this reason. It was like they said, it was a sign from the universe. It had to be that the kid puked all over the clothes and they lost all the money. He should have had to pay for those damages, though. He definitely should have. I don't understand why he didn't. That's a bit of bull, I think. Our second story comes from Bad Bitch Hero Dotus. So I read this title and my jaw dropped. It's terrible manager collapses an entire department. I worked in an accounting department at a small business. My boss, Gary, was great and gave us lots of autonomy to get everything done. It was a small business, and over the years, as is common in small businesses, I picked up a number of duties that weren't strictly in my job description, but were pretty important. We also had a number of processes that were not well documented, but we were understaffed and not able to make any real changes. Things overall were pretty good, though, and our work flowed well, and everyone was happy. Not everyone, though. Gary's boss, Carl, recently had taken over as president of the company and wanted to slash Gary's costs. Gas was one of the highest paid employees, and Carl tried to get him to take a pay cut or a cut in hours. When Gary refused, Carl fired him and shortly replaced him with Matt, who was much less experienced and much less qualified. Oh my god. Around this time, I used my leverage with Carl to get a solid raise. I knew Carl would be looking to replace me soon, like he did Gary, but I was too essential to lose without Gary there either. I figured I had about 6 months, which lined up with about when I was planning to move out of state anyway. So, knowing that, when I did leave, my coworkers would be stuck picking up the slack of my job, particularly all of the ancillary stuff I had picked up that was not documented at all. I started writing a detailed manual for my own job when I had time here and there. I didn't care for Matt or Carl, but I figured it would save my coworkers a lot of stress. Matt was a poor accountant and a worse manager. He was an awful micromanager with no concept of the bigger picture. Pretty quickly, he noticed that I was spending time doing all of these other duties not in my job description. He told me I was only to work on projects he assigned me directly. I tried to point out all the things that would not get done if I didn't do that. He was having none of it and told me not to worry about it as it wasn't my job. Sure thing, boss. I stopped doing anything except what he told me to do, and the department started falling apart. Customer emails went unanswered, software stopped working with no one to support it, files weren't organized, etc. I normally took care of these and 100 other things, but Matt was pretty clear that I'm not to do any of it. I also stopped working on my manual. After a few months of this, but sooner than I expected, I was laid off by Carl and Matt for budgetary reasons. Of course, they listed my job on Indeed that same day for a laughably low salary. I was given no warning, just sat down for a meeting with the two and walked out the door. Matt didn't allow me to take anything from my desk, access my computer, or say goodbye to my coworkers. He was also very clear that I was not to retain any company documents or information. Sure thing, boss. So I left and I heard from my coworkers still there that over the next few weeks, things took an even worse nosedive. They weren't able to fill my job, and nobody could cover most of my actual job duties or any of my ancillary duties. By this point, vendors weren't being paid, and payroll wasn't going out on time. And then I got the call. Matt found the file that I had left in a conspicuous spot on the network drive, _job manual and processes.zip. It was encrypted. What's in it? Oh, just a draft of all of my job duties and everything I was responsible for that I worked on in my downtime. Why was it even encrypted? Well, it had a bunch of confidential data and passwords in it, boss. What's the password? Sorry, boss, I don't know. I didn't retain it after leaving, but it's in my files. In reality, since it wasn't finished, the manual wasn't going to be some panacea for all the company's problems, but I had padded it with a lot of images, so I imagine the file size was pretty attractive, and the password was indeed in my files. If Matt cared to look, he'd find an unlabeled sticky note with a nondescript string of letters and numbers in a random folder in one of my 24 filing cabinets. As an epilogue, about 3 months after I talked to Matt, Carl fired him after discovering what a disaster the department had become. My coworkers both left around the same time for better opportunities. Carl's still been unable to fill any of these jobs after almost 18 months, so the entire accounting department is staffed by contractors and consultants, who I am sure are costing the company a fortune. I hear the board is looking for a change in company presidents. Ha! See, that's what... I used to work at a retail company. It was a gaming retail company, a very popular one. And I did all of these jobs that were not in my job description, and my manager appreciated me for it. He was, first of all, the best manager I've ever had. But, like, you have to appreciate your employees that go above and beyond. Because I had experience in retail before this, my manager actually got me a higher pay than the rest of the employees except for the managers, because I was doing so much and because I knew so much about retail coming into this job. So, like, you can't expect things to go okay when the only employee that knows what to do you fire because of money, which is not the case at all. I love when people don't appreciate their employees and then it just goes to shit because of that. Beautiful. Okay. Our next Reddit story is from Big Capper69. We're working too fast? Okay, we'll slow down for you. I also jaw dropped and laughed at this title. I recently found this sub and I think I have a great story for it. This happened about 2 years ago. I work in construction, but more specifically, I cut concrete. A lot of people aren't familiar with my job, but all you really need to know is that I don't pour any concrete. I use big diesel and hydraulic powered saws to cut it and remove it. Oh my god. I work at a relatively small company, 15 employees, and we are the company to use for concrete cutting and removal in our area. I was the first employee hired at this company, and my bosses are amazing. They have been in the industry for 25 and 30 years respectively. We will call them Brad and Cody. They know what they're doing, and they still get out and work in the field and will outwork any of our employees. We were awarded a no-bid contract by a very large facility to cut and remove a very large section of their outdoor slab because it had cracked. This was routine for us. We could do it in our sleep, but it was still a large project. The reason we were given the contract but not held to a number was because they wanted it done right and fast, and they knew that we were the guys to do this, even though we weren't always the cheapest. The customer requested us to bring extra equipment and specialized jaws just in case. Important later. The day comes that we are supposed to start, and they wanted us on site at 6:30 a.m. for a safety meeting. Brad and Cody went out while I stayed back to get my crews ready for the day before heading out to meet them. When I arrived at 8 a.m., they were still standing by their trucks just talking. I asked them how the safety meeting went, and they said that no one showed up yet. Finally, they got there around 9 a.m. and didn't even acknowledge that they were late. We met the guy that was in charge of the project. His name was John. John said that during the safety meeting that there would always be a few people around from his company to watch us while we worked. We figured it was weird, but no big deal. We ran a routine safety meeting after, and then it was time to work. We got about a third of the project completed in one day. Wow. The entire time we were working, there was no less than 25 people standing around watching us work. We kept joking with them just to set up bleachers. It would be easier to watch that way. They made us call it quits at 4 p.m. so they could go home. Right about this time, we started to figure that there was something up with these guys. They didn't care that we didn't get started until late and wanted us to end early. Yet a big part of us being there was to get it done fast. Either way, we figured we would still be able to get it done in about 3 days and make record time for a project of this size, all while making a fair amount of money for ourselves. The next morning, as we were getting ready to head out for the day, Brad received an email. It said, "While we can tell that X company are master operations with their machines, we feel as if they are operating in an unsafe manner by running multiple machines at once and request that they slow down to maintain safe working conditions. They also didn't try to make sure our superiors felt that they were safe throughout the day." Brad was pissed. We were called in to get things done fast, and not once had we done a single thing that could be considered unsafe. When we got to the job that day for the safety meeting, Brad had changed from "screw these guys, they don't know anything about what we're doing" to "okay, we're too fast, we'll slow it right down for you." At the safety meeting, John, same guy who sent us all the email, looked at us and said, "Okay, everyone knows what we are doing, so let's get it done." He tried to end the safety meeting with that, but that's when my boss spoke up. He said, "Hold on, since no one is man enough to tell us in person and just wants to hide behind their emails, let's get this straight. We're too fast and too unsafe for you?" John became visibly uncomfortable and stammered out, Well, there was a lot of people standing around and watching you yesterday, and I just felt that someone would get hurt if they decided to get closer to watch." I had set up safety cones with red danger tape strung between it and told no one to cross. We had taken proper safety precautions. If they didn't feel comfortable to have that many people watch, then don't have that many people standing, watching, and doing nothing. All Brad said was, "Okay, we'll be real slow, and if someone crosses our line, we'll shut the site down for an hour for another safety meeting." Time for malicious compliance. Brad told us all that if we ever sped up our machines, that he would kick us off the job, even Cody, his business partner. I was cutting with our saw while Cody was in the excavator to remove the pieces that I cut. Brad was in the skid steer to haul the pieces to the dump truck. I would cut off the concrete into a 6x6 piece, which would normally take me about 20 to 30 minutes. It was taking upwards of 3 hours for one piece. After I would cut, Cody in the excavator would turn his machine on, slowly turn and stop. Extend his bucket, stop. Lower the bucket, stop. Tilt the bucket, stop. Pick up the piece, stop. Turn, stop. Drop the piece, stop. Shut off the machine, all without idling up. Then Brad would start his machine and repeat the same process to load into the dump truck. You get the point. It was painfully slow. After the first piece was ready to be pulled out and Cody started the process, John, who was sitting on the sideline, pale-faced, crossed my line to ask if we were really serious. At that point, Brad screamed, "Shut down!" And we all stepped away for an hour for a safety meeting. John crossed the line 3 times in the first day and 8 times total throughout the whole project. His employees never once crossed the danger line. Effectively, John was the only one he should have been worried about in his email about getting too close and being in danger. John kept saying, "No way you guys are being serious. What happened to what you were doing yesterday? You were so much more efficient." Brad just said, "I have it in writing that you felt unsafe, so for the remainder of this project, we will be operating at a safe pace." It ended up taking us 3 weeks to finish that horribly slow-paced job instead of 3 or 4 days at full speed. The best part? The head of the facility came out to see what was taking us so long. We showed him the email and he agreed with what we were doing. He told us that he hates John and that he's insufferable to work around. He said that the success of this project is directly tied to John's yearly bonus. He asked how much we were charging them, and we told him that per piece of equipment and truck and saw that is on the site is being billed to them by the hour, and that John had requested that we have nearly double the amount of equipment than we actually needed or used. The facility head just laughed and said, "Fantastic, I'll make sure you're paid or full. Don't go easy on us with the bill." That's how we maliciously complied our way into charging about $200,000 for a job that should have realistically only been worth about $45,000. I even got a solid $20,000 bonus because Brad and Cody are fantastic bosses and knew we made a killing on that job. I love this. Okay, update. I felt like I wanted to clarify a couple of things after reading the comments. First, yes, John tried to get us to go back on our previous working rate, but he would only ever verbally ask. My boss kept telling him, "I need that in writing and you have a deal. Hell, might even save yourself some money while you're at it." But John either never understood what he was implying or really didn't want to send an email regarding his statement, believing that he would look dumb for making a mistake. Second, this was a big project, bigger than what my part in it was. That being said, with how John was with us, I would seriously doubt every other aspect of the job went smooth for him. I bet they ended up with some profit, but not nearly as much as they would have without John, meaning that he still probably got a bonus, just a very small one. Third, how did they have so many people able to stand around and watch for 3 weeks and not work? Well, by the end of the third week, there was probably only 10 people watching us by then, but this was a facility that has hundreds of people working there, so for 25 people at a time to sneak out for most of the day to watch us wasn't too big of a deal for them. They usually rotated, and if we saw someone one day, then we didn't usually see them again for about a week. Also, just another little satisfying part of the story, heck yeah, I should have included was that Cody has had a saying since the very first time I worked with him. He says, "We aren't trying to retire off this one single job. We are treating the customer fair, but fair isn't always cheap." After the facility head gave us the go-ahead to charge what was needed and not take it easy, Cody looked up and said, "Yep, we're retiring off of this one." Obviously, it was more of a joke, but the satisfaction I got from hearing him say that after knowing him for 10 years to be the guy who is extra fair will never be rivaled. I love that story. That was funny. Yeah, I like the story. I love the fact that the big head honcho guy was like, "No, you're going too fast." And then it took him 3 weeks, and he lost money out of it, and the whole job was ruined because of it. Well, it wasn't ruined. They got the job done, which was great. But it's just, I don't know. I find it really funny. Thank you for watching. If you like me, please subscribe to my channel. If you like this video, please leave a like. I've heard it helps. I don't know how yet, but when I figure it out, I'll tell you. And I hope I see you in the next video, and I hope you have a great day.